What's going on, y'all? Machiavelli Mills TV. So look, this morning I woke up and I saw something that sparked me to make this video. I'm a big college football fan, big football fan in general, right? And yesterday I was looking at Jackson State University play Florida A&M University and won by a score of 7-6, right? For those who don't know, Jackson State University has Deion Sanders at the helm. Yes, the prime time legendary Deion Sanders is the head coach of the Jackson State Tigers, right? And so when I'm looking up the scores of the game and I'm looking up articles about Deion and Jackson State, and I saw that his son Shador is now quarterbacking at Jackson State. So I'm looking up stuff about the game and I see something from Deion that made me really want to stand up and clap. Stand up and just applaud Deion for how he stands up for historically black colleges and universities, right? So it's an article about him saying, how can we get the SWAC players to have their names on the back of their jerseys? Now, the SWAC is the Southwest Athletic Conference, which the which is the conference that the HBCU schools play in. They play in the SWAC, right? I myself went to a school that's in the SWAC, Mississippi Valley State University, the academic oasis of the Mississippi Delta, right? So when I see him say this, he says, man, a lot of these kids work hard to try to get Division I scholarships. They've earned those things, and when their families are seeing them play on TV, they want to be able to recognize their baby. They want to see that name on the back of their jersey and say, that's my baby, that's my grandson, that's my son, that's my brother, that's my sister, so on and so forth, right? And he said, how can we get that? And he's like, he found out that the SWAC does not have a policy against having the names on the back of their jerseys. It's just that they have to pay money for that. And he said, you know what? If I have to pay for it, I will. I will pay for every other school in the SWAC to have their names on the back of their jersey, just to have that done, because that means a lot to a lot of families back at home, right? When they got their babies, they send their babies off to school and send them to play football. They want to see their babies' names on the back of their jerseys, man. And I want to do that for the SWAC. And that right there is the reason why Deion Sanders being head coach at Jackson State is not just good for Jackson State. It's good for all HBCUs, all historically black colleges and universities. Because I'm going to tell you right now, since Deion Sanders has come to Jackson State, I have never, ever in my life seen this much coverage involving HBCUs. HBCU footballs they've never been given this much coverage, right? Normally they put the HBCU teams on ESPN3, where you had to go watch it on the internet and so on and so forth. They didn't give us these primetime games. You didn't have, and no pun intended with primetime, of course, but you didn't have HBCUs just playing back to back like this on ESPN. Now you're seeing a general interest in HBCU football, whether it's forced or not. People are talking about it. ESPN is sitting up here talking about HBCU football when they once never did. Only time they would even bring it up is when they mention where some great Hall of Fame players came from, right? Which a lot of the great Hall of Fame players in the NFL came from HBCUs back in the day, because those were the only schools that they could go to for like players that were playing during times of Jim Crow era. And then after that, even in the 80s, it was the HBCUs gave these kids that maybe didn't get other opportunities a chance to play collegiate football, and they happened to excel and get to the NFL, right? But I've never seen the eyes on HBCUs like this at all. The discussions, the conversations about leveling the playing field are all important. They are all important, man. And for Deion Sanders to go to Jackson State University, he is a trailblazer. And I'm telling you, you got to be built for that battle. You have to be built for that, because the playing field has been so uneven for so long. Like, it's people that haven't even heard of Jackson State University, right? That haven't even heard of it, even though they produce several Hall of Fame players. Walter Payton, Jimmy Smith, that played for Jacksonville Jaguars. I believe I'm saying his name right. Is before my time, but yeah, like, they produce Hall of Fame players, and people have never heard of these schools. My university, Mississippi Valley State University, we have two Hall of Famers that come out of our school. Deacon Jones played at my school, and also the great Jerry Rice, the greatest wide receiver of all time. But people have no idea about none of these institutions. So with Deion Sanders coming there, man, I'm seeing, like, when I saw Troy Aikman and Nick Saban shouting out Jackson State University and coming out and advocating for HBCUs in support of Jackson State, I was like, wow. I'm sitting there with the Flavor Flav. Wow, G. Y'all know how Flavor Flav used to be. But I'm really like, man, that is important. They doing that because Deion Sanders is there. He's there. So when he's there, there is a focal point put on Jackson State and the HBCUs they are playing. It's people looking at these other players when they may have never even watched these games. Scouts coming to see Jackson State players and getting a chance to see other guys playing at other schools throughout the SWAC or other schools throughout the MEAC and so on and so forth, right? Because they want to see, like, man, what other talent is out here? They're looking at Jackson State talent because they coming to see what Deion boys they come to see what Deion's boys are coming with. But then they say, oh my God, this young brother can play football. This young kid can play. This young kid can play. And I'm telling you, for years, a lot of the HBCU talent has been overlooked because they didn't think that the kids playing at HBCUs were good enough to play against these other kids playing at Alabama, against these other kids playing at Ohio State University, against these other kids playing at Florida, playing at Florida State, so on and so forth. Right? They didn't think that those kids can compete. So when they saw kids excelling in the SWAC, a lot of them were just like, that ain't nothing. They ain't nothing. They're not playing in the Power 6 conferences. They're not playing in FBS division. So it doesn't mean anything to them. And that was the problem. That was the problem. But now, Deion Sanders is I'm telling you, he is going to make a lot. He is evoking change for real. And it's needed. Right? My school, Mississippi Valley State University, is the youngest school in the SWAC. My father is 5 years younger than the university I went to, right? Which means that, unfortunately, we don't have the same alumni support that a Jackson State would have. We don't have the same type of resources that a Jackson State that plays in the state's capital would have, right? You know what I mean? And some of that a lot of that has to do with alumni and so on and so forth. But a lot of the resources and funding, it just will never get to this small, really school, this small historically black school in the Mississippi Delta, right? But with Deion Sanders coming to Jackson State, there is a vested interest being taken into other universities, other HBCUs across the board. You know what I mean? And schools that are less known, are less funded than Jackson State. Well, people may start to look at those universities and say, how can we have to help that institution? How can we help that institution? How can we make things better? And that is what is needed. I remember back in 2015 or 2014, I'm sorry. I think it's 2014, 2014. I was at Mississippi Valley State University. I'm working in a radio station. I got friends that play football. And a lot of the kids on the team, the defense in particular, were very, very good players. Excellent players. I know football, them boys could play for real, right? But the problem was that a lot of the HBCUs we don't have pro days where professional scouts come to the school and evaluate the players. They can put their talents on display for all of these general managers and all these different scouts from professional NFL teams can come and get first dibs on players. We don't have those same type of luxuries, right? So I remember the head coach, Carl Morgan at the time, head coach of Mississippi Valley State University, him being a former NFL player with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I believe, he reached out to some friends of his at Mississippi State in order to get some of the kids from my school, Mississippi Valley State University, a chance to come to their pro day at Mississippi State and get looked at, just to get an opportunity to get a glance at. The HBCUs don't even get that. You know what I mean? We don't even get the same we don't get the same type of opportunities to get seen by the scouts. And we looked at it as not me, because I'm not a player. And I'm not a football player, but I'm saying the kids at the black colleges, historically black colleges, they get shunned and get looked over and get dismissed and get looked at as minuscule, right? To the point where they don't even get an opportunity to get looked at on an individual day for their own school. The schools aren't deemed worthy enough to even get glanced at, right? So Coach Morgan had to ask a buddy of his at Mississippi State, can Valley players, MVSU players, come to Mississippi State's pro day and get looked at, right? That's a problem. And I'm telling you right now, Deion Sanders being at Jackson State, I believe he's going to help fix those things. I believe he's going to try to help get those things on an even playing field where all the schools in the SWAC can get them a pro day, right? Whether you feel like it's important to you, whether you feel like they got players at these universities or not, right? Give those kids the same type of opportunity to get looked at, man. It matters. It matters. I'm telling y'all, man. Deion being at Jackson State is going to bring resources to other schools. To other schools. People are going to say, man, you know what? These schools don't have the same type of resources that these other big schools have. They need those things. They need a better weight program. They need a lot of the resources that the other schools have. There's a reason why my school, Mississippi Valley State University, hasn't had a winning football program in a while, and it's because we lack a lot of funding, a whole lot of it, man, and we're overlooked. You know, people don't really care about the school, whatever. Like it's really hard. It's really hard for a lot of these kids. A lot of these kids at HBCUs really get it out the mud when they playing football. Really get it out the mud, right? And that's why I respect when some of these top tier talents come to HBCUs and try to do something different. Try to create a change in culture, right? Because that can, I'm telling y'all, man, that can it can do wonders for institutions. When a top player comes to an HBCU, oh man, you're going to bring the camera crews. You're going to bring a lot of the supporters. And a lot of the supporters, just because that young man is there as a player, or just because that coach is there as a player, they're going to take an interest in that school. And then going to survey the landscape and say, you know what? Man, you know what? That school needs some money. That school needs that. That school needs this. I remember when Grambling State went on strike. What was this? Man, y'all remember this. It was 2013 or 2014 or something like that, because they had mold on their uniforms and all type of stuff, mold all on their stuff. It was just all type of bad. It was really, really bad. Grambling doesn't have a lot of the resources that a lot of the bigger institutions like a Howard University would have, or not even just a Howard. Outside of the HBCUs, they don't have the resources that a lot of the other, Louisiana State or something would have at all. And so they have mold on their uniforms and stuff like that. They're like, man, we need better things for our team. We need better conditions, right? And that's a problem. But with Deion Sanders being at Jackson State, I'm telling y'all, man, he's going to have these other schools be like, man, he's going to have these other people who love him. So you know what? We do need to do more for HBCUs, because Deion is being that voice. He is the conduit. He is being that. He is being the medium for all the HBCUs to say, you know what? Something needs to be done. We need something done. These schools need better things. These kids need better opportunities. They need to get looked at. Kids at HBCUs are supremely talented, but not even getting drafted at all. And it's not because they can't play. I can guarantee you that. It was several young men in my school, and I'm not even lying to y'all. If you saw it, you can look these guys up. You can look these players up. If you saw Julian Stafford play at Mississippi Valley State University, and I wrote an article on this young brother, right, that was published on ESPN, and I can put the link in the description box below. If you saw Julian Stafford play football at wide receiver, the young man was special. Reminded me of a Steve Smith type. Speedy, could break tackles, can make plays after the catch. You know what I mean? He could make plays after the catch, not just a guy that catch a ball and get tackled and go down. He could make plays after the catch. Elongate plays. Was a game changer on a return game and receiving game, right? You had defensive end Robert Simpson, was special, right? Cornerback Avery Boykin was special. Y'all can look up these names: Avery Boykin, Robert Simpson, Julian Stafford, players at Mississippi Valley State University. Great players, and they just never got the same opportunity that these other schools got. So unfortunately, they didn't get those pro looks. But I can guarantee you, if those players went to a Ole Miss, if they went to a and I'm not going to even name Alabama. If they went to an Ole Miss or Mississippi State, the trajectory of their lives would be completely different. But because they went to the HBCUs, they were shunned, they were overlooked. Oh, they ain't doing nothing down there. They ain't doing nothing at them little bitty schools. They ain't on nothing, right? As if like all these other talents didn't come out of HBCUs, like Shannon Sharp, right? Like Steve McNair. You know, like it's like how can you overlook that? How can you look at that and act like it doesn't exist? How can you act like the greatest wide receiver of all time didn't come from my school, Mississippi Valley State University? How can you act like that? There's always diamonds in the rough, hidden gems that are waiting to be found. But people not even taking the time to dig. They're not even taking the time to excavate the trenches for them. They're looking over them, they ain't nothing, and going about their day. You know, that's what hurts my heart, because I've seen kids that were supremely talented, that had all the work ethic and drive to get to that level, but just didn't get those looks because they didn't go to the big schools, right? And sometimes it ain't even about, oh, it's a 5-star or whatever, because like Deion Sanders said, I can make a kid a 5-star just by giving out a phone call. I can make a kid that ain't that good, ain't worth nothing, can't really play that good. I can make him a 5-star player with one phone call. His whole thing, everything will change. You know what? And just look at all the other kids, the players that came from these other schools, even outside of the HBCUs. Khalil Mack, that plays for the Chicago Bears. My team right now, because I'm a Chicago resident. Khalil Mack went to Buffalo. That ain't no football program. But look, he was there. Like man, you see how dominant of a player he is? Come on, man. It's guys like that in these HBCU conferences all the time, just waiting to be discovered. And I'm like, man, Deion Sanders being there, he's going to speak about all these issues. He's going to bring that to the forefront. Again, I'm seeing more discussions about players, more discussions about HBCUs all on ESPN. Eddie George, I think, is at Tennessee State. You know, the ultra talented supreme running back, Eddie George, played for the Tennessee Titans. He's at Tennessee State. So, I'm hoping it's a trickle-down effect from all these coaches coming to HBCUs. Mo Williams, former All-Star in the NBA, is coaching at Alabama State, coaching basketball. Lindsey Hunter, 2-time NBA champion, is head coach at my university, Mississippi Valley State University. Lindsey Hunter is there. All right, so I'm hoping that other players, former players and former athletes, professional athletes, will come to these HBCUs and give them an opportunity and give them a chance, like Deion Sanders is doing, like Lindsey Hunter is doing, like Mo Williams is doing, like Eddie George is doing, like Doug Williams did in the past, coming to Grambling, right? Trying to make things different for these kids, trying to change their lives. Deion is doing that, man. I'm looking at the quality of production around everything at Jackson State and how they getting covered on Barstool Sports and all of that. And you got FS1 Fox Sports News is talking about Jackson State, and they got like basically almost developing just segments for them, and how like these schools, man, it's talent all through there. It's talent all through there, man, and that is important. That is important for these kids. You know, that's what they need. They need a guy who has a voice that people will listen to, right? Because outside of the black community, even outside of the black community, Deion Sanders is loved. I'm going to say it right now. White folks love Deion Sanders. Love him dearly. Love him with all their heart and soul, right? You know, because Deion was a special player, a transcendent great, who was great in every single thing that he did, right? So, you know, people follow him and want to know what he's up to because he has this charisma. He has this, I don't know, man, he has this it factor that people follow and people listen to, right? Just imagine if a Michael Jordan were to come and coach at the HBCU, people will stop everything they're doing, drop everything they're doing and come to where he's at, right? You know what? Scottie Pippen come coach at a Mississippi Valley State University. People, the camera crew's gonna flood into MVSU, right? You know what I mean? Just imagine if a Shaquille O'Neal were to come to coach at Alcorn State University in Lorman, Mississippi. You're gonna have every camera crew you can think of gonna be at Alcorn State. Everybody, man. Hampton University, right? If I don't know, man. If Charles Barkley or somebody would have come and coach at Hampton, or Dominique Wilkins were to come and coach at trying to think of another school, Arkansas Pine Bluff, University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. If Dominique Wilkins were to come and coach at Arkansas Pine Bluff, somebody were to come and coach at Savannah State. You know, if Shannon Sharp were to come and coach at Savannah State, man, people would marvel at that. People would come and see that spectacle because they would want to come see that player. But that in turn would create an interest and support in those universities. You know what I mean? It would be sponsors, people coming to just push money into the schools because they need that, man. At the time, these schools were the only opportunities that young black kids had to play collegiate sports. It was the only chance that we had to be educated. because we couldn't go. I'm not saying me, but I'm saying black people. Black people couldn't go to them schools. We couldn't go. We couldn't go to the predominantly white institutions. My grandmother couldn't go there, right? My grandfather couldn't go there. My great-grandparents could not go there. So they had to go to the HBCUs to get educated, to get the degrees in order to gain knowledge, gain skills, gain all different type of assets to be able to function properly in the regular society, to be able to be productive in society. They had to go to the black schools to get educated, to get the proper tools, the proper instruction, to be able to be prosperous in their life, to be able to and give everything that they wanted to their children, everything that they could to their children, so their children could lead better lives. You know what I mean? So these HBCUs getting funding, being supported is important, because to this very day, these HBCUs are located in some of the poorest regions of the United States, and they educate a lot of those kids coming from those poor, impoverished areas. They educate those kids. And we ain't in there getting taught no BS, despite what y'all think. You know what I mean? My boy went from Mississippi Valley State University to Columbia, an Ivy League school for grad school, and told me they were getting taught the exact same thing we were learning at MVSU. It was just they had the bigger name, the bigger platform, the bigger, everything was just around that Ivy League school because it was Columbia. But we were getting taught the exact same things. The exact same, what's the word I'm looking for? The exact same, curriculum. The exact same curriculum. Excuse me, y'all, for stammering and stuttering and so on and so forth throughout the video, but we were getting taught the exact same curriculum. But my degree has looked like it's nothing compared to the kid that went to Columbia. So those things should change, man. And I think Deion is going to help evoke change to where people are going to look at the HBCUs completely different. When you see Deion's program coming up and producing young black men that speak well, that speak confidently, that you can see and you can hear the intelligence when they talk, right? You're like, man, them HBCUs are doing a great job with those young men at Jackson State. And then you go look at, let's look at the other schools. That HBCU, Mississippi Valley State University, is doing a great job with their young man. You know what? Texas Southern University is doing a great job for their young man. Michael Strahan comes from Texas Southern. A lot of people don't even know that. Michael Strahan is one of the most powerful voices on television to this day. Comes straight out of Texas Southern, an HBCU, right? I believe Avery Johnson came from Southern University in Baton Rouge. And it's just a slew of other different players that came from the HBCUs who went on to do great things. But Deion Sanders, I'm telling y'all, being at Jackson State, man, he is a trailblazer, and he's going to open doors for a lot of opportunities for HBCUs. Possibly, I really want the pro days at the universities, because that is needed for kids, man. The kids from MVSU had to drive 2 hours or an hour and a half away to go to Mississippi State to get a pro day for scouts to look at them, because they would not come to these HBCUs to see these kids display their talents. They would not come. They didn't want a pro day at Mississippi Valley State University. They don't want a pro day. They want a pro day at Alcorn State. They didn't want a pro day at University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. They didn't want a pro day at Alabama State, at Alabama A&M, They didn't want a pro day at Southern University or Grambling State, and so on and so forth. So kids got to travel to other schools and search high and low to get those opportunities, man. And it's really sad. It really hurts my heart that has to happen. But Deion Sanders being at HBCU, I'm telling y'all, man, it's great for black colleges and universities. Not just great for Jackson State, but great for HBCUs as a whole. Machiavelli Mills TV, thank y'all for watching. Like the video, comment, subscribe. I appreciate y'all. Share this video. Peace.